My beloved brothers and sisters, I send my love and greetings to each of you and pray that our Heavenly Father will guide my thoughts and inspire my words as I speak to you today. May I begin by making a comment or two concerning the fine messages we've heard this morning from Sister Allred and Bishop Burton and others pertaining to the church's welfare program. As indicated, this year marks the 75th anniversary of this inspired program, which has blessed the lives of so many. It was my privilege to know personally some of those who pioneered this great endeavor, men of compassion and foresight. As both Bishop Burton, Sister Allred, and others mentioned, the Bishop of the Ward is given the responsibility to care for those in need who reside within the boundaries of his ward. Such was my privilege when I presided as a very young bishop in Salt Lake City over a ward of 1,080 members, including 84 widows. There were many who needed assistance. How grateful I was for the welfare program of the church and for the help of the Relief Society and the priesthood quorums. I declare that the welfare program of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is inspired of Almighty God. Now, my brothers and sisters, this conference marks 3 years since I was sustained as president of the church. Of course, they've been busy years, filled with many challenges, but also with countless blessings. The opportunity I've had to dedicate and rededicate temples has been among the most enjoyable and sacred of these blessings. And it is concerning the temple that I wish to speak to you today. During the October General Conference in 1902, Church President Joseph F. Smith expressed in his opening address the hope that one day we would have temples built in the various parts of the world where they're needed for the convenience of the people. During the first 150 years following the organization of the church, from 1830 to 1980, 21 temples were built, including the temples in Kirtland, Ohio, and Nauvoo, Illinois. Contrast that with the 30 years since 1980, during which 115 temples were built and dedicated. With the announcement yesterday of 3 new temples, there are additionally 26 temples either under construction or in pre-construction stages. These numbers will continue to grow. The goal President Joseph F. Smith hoped for in 1902 is becoming a reality. Our desire is to make the temple as accessible as possible to our members. One of the temples currently under construction is in Manaus, Brazil. Many years ago, I read of a group of over 100 members who left Manaus, located in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, to travel to what was then the closest temple, located in Sao Paulo, Brazil, nearly 2,500 miles from Manaus. Those faithful saints journeyed by boat for 4 days on the Amazon River and its tributaries. After completing this journey by water, they boarded buses for another 3 days of travel over bumpy roads with very little to eat and with nowhere comfortable to sleep. After 7 days and nights, they arrived at the temple in Sao Paulo, where ordinances eternal in nature were performed. Of course, their return journey was just as difficult. However, they had received the ordinances and blessings of the temple, and although their purses were empty, they themselves were filled with the spirit of the temple and with gratitude for the blessings they had received. Now, many years later, our members in Manaus are rejoicing as they watch their own temple take shape on the banks of the Rio Negro River. Temples bring joy to our faithful members wherever they're built. Reports of the sacrifices made in order to receive the blessings found only in temples of God never fail to touch my heart and bring to me a renewed sense of thankfulness for temples. May I share with you the account of Tihi and Tararaina Mutam and their 10 children? The entire family joined the church in the early 1960s when missionaries came to their island, located about 100 miles south of Tahiti. Soon they began the desire for the blessings of an eternal family sealing in the temple. At that time, the nearest temple to the Mutum family was the Hamilton, New Zealand temple, more than 2,500 miles to the southwest, accessible only by expensive airplane travel. The large Mutum family, which eked out a meager living on a small plantation, had no money for airplane fare, nor was there any opportunity for employment on their Pacific island. So Brother Mutum and his son Gerard made the difficult decision to join another son who was working in the nickel mines of New Caledonia, 3,000 miles to the west. The employer provided his employees paid passage to the mines, but provided no transportation back home. The 3 Mutum men labored for 4 years in the tropical nickel mines, digging and loading the heavy ore. Brother Mutum alone returned home for a brief visit once a year, leaving his sons in New Caledonia. After 4 years of backbreaking labor, Brother Mutum and his sons had saved enough money to take the family to the New Zealand temple. All went, except for one daughter. They were sealed for time and eternity, an indescribable and joyful experience. Brother Mutum returned from the temple directly to New Caledonia, where he worked for 2 more years to pay for the passage of the one daughter who had not been at the temple with them, a married daughter and her child and husband. In their later years, Brother and Sister Mutum desired to serve in the temple. By that time, the Papeete Tahiti temple had been constructed and dedicated, and they served 2 missions there. My brothers and sisters, temples are more than stone and mortar. They're filled with faith and fasting. They are built of trials and testimonies. They are sanctified by sacrifice and service. The first temple to be built in this dispensation was the temple at Kirtland, Ohio. The saints at the time were impoverished, and yet the Lord had commanded that a temple be built. So build it they did. Wrote Elder Heber C. Kimball of the experience, "The Lord only knows the scenes of poverty, tribulation, and distress which we pass through to accomplish it," close quote. And then, after all that had been painstakingly completed, the saints were forced to leave Ohio and their beloved temple. They eventually found refuge, although it would be temporary, on the banks of the Mississippi River in the state of Illinois. They named their settlement Nauvoo, and willing to give their all once again, and with their faith intact, they erected another temple to their God. Persecutions raged, however, and with the Nauvoo temple barely completed, they were driven from their homes once again, seeking refuge in a desert place no one else wanted.